good afternoon, and welcome to episode 6 of A Glimpse of the Feminine. I'm your host, Tracy, and boy, it's been a week. I have ongoing vehicle problems. It's really fun and exciting. I have a pickup that needed some work, so we got a new radiator, we got a new master cylinder, it had new brakes on it, and the kid that had the pickup, one of my kids, had lost the key, so we had to put a new ignition cylinder thing with a key in it, and it got brought home the other night, and it looks like it probably needs a new transmission. So that was exciting. Still without a vehicle. And got some little mice that have decided my house is a really nice place to be. So we've been setting mouse traps. And I had my son set a mouse trap in my bathroom. And my little dog went in my bathroom, and I heard the snap, and she started yiping, and she tried to eat the peanut butter off the mouse trap. So, served you right. So anyway, lots of fun and excitement around here. Today we're going to talk about how we interact with our culture. I touched on this a little bit in the last episode, and I just wanted to go a little more in depth on what that looks like. What does it mean? What does it look like to be Christ-like when we're interacting with our culture? So we're going to look at that. So I'm going to start out with some thoughts from a Reddit thread on what do non-Christian people think about Christianity. So it's not great. I think Christians are hypocrites who care more about using their religion to justify bigotry and exclusion of others. I don't think it's a religion of love and peace, but quite the opposite. I think Christians would support a fascist theocracy in a heartbeat. Frankly, they frighten me. I think that overall Christianity is a pushy, two-faced, arrogant religion that has caused hundreds of years of misery, torment, and death for non-Christians and non-Christian cultures across the world, and has a strong enough PR campaign to try and get people to forget all this, and is pretty damn successful at it. Frustration. Knowing with 95% certainty that they'll hate me based on their assumptions about me without ever bothering to ask me anything. How Christ-like. I don't dislike Christians. They're lost in fear, and that's too sad to hate. I'm just really tired of having to navigate around their intolerances all the time. As far as the average Christian, they seem to be following some other religion, one of fear and hate. So very little respect overall. I might have more respect for them if the non-racist denominations actually stood up against the evangelical crazies. It would, I think, be to their advantage, as they are all being painted with the same brush by many of us. I've come to completely despise Christianity and the senseless fanaticism of its followers. It's a hollow religion that strips away your identity and individuality. It's good that I stepped out of it when I could. In a recent sermon on what does it mean to be with Jesus, the pastor read some of these comments from Reddit as proof that we will be misunderstood and opposed when we follow Jesus. Christians love to pull the woe is me, look at how persecuted we Christians are cards. They will cite Matthew 5:10-12. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And John 15:18-21 says, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. But all these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. But as I observe Christians in real life, and especially on social media, I have to wonder if we're being reviled and persecuted on Christ's account or because of our own bad behavior. Is Christ being reviled on my account? And going back to that Reddit thread, frustration, knowing with 95% certainty that they'll hate me based on their assumptions about me without ever bothering to ask me anything. I'm just really tired of having to navigate around their intolerances all the time. That's not Jesus. That is not Jesus. I see so many comments and memes shared by those who would claim the name of Christ that belittle, demean, and show an attitude of you are less than towards transgendered and queer people, people of opposing political views, people of differing faith traditions, people with tattoos. I mean, the list goes on and on. Hateful and divisive comments and memes that reinforce an us versus them mentality. This past fall, sometime late October, early November, I kind of got into it with a gal on Facebook. Now, I don't know what your Facebook looks like. How you do your friends. I have lots of friends, I use the term loosely, on Facebook that I have no idea who they are. I have been very involved in the heart community, doing advocacy and connecting with other heart moms. And so I have lots and lots of friends in that community that I don't know them. I have a lot of friends from the days when I was homeschooling and going to conferences and stuff and was home most of the time. And some of those people are friends of friends. So, we had somebody in common that I actually did know. And so when one of their friends wanted to friend me, I'm like, well, I know this person and they're a good person. So anyway, I have lots of people on my Facebook that I don't actually know. So this gal had posted a meme, and I can't remember now what the meme was. But it was very demeaning. And I just made a comment on the meme that said, I really don't think as Christians we should be posting things like this. Like this is not Jesus's heart towards people. And Jesus would not look at this group of people and respond in this way. I was not rude about it. I just was I was blunt, but I wasn't aggressive at all. And instead of replying to my comment, she chose to come over to my page and start commenting on something I had posted. I don't even know what. And just attack me over that comment. And I was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I was stating all these things that were untrue. And she kept saying, in that day, you will remember that I said. And I thought, are you a prophet now? And I just kept saying, Jesus would not treat people like this. And if you think he would, show me chapter and verse. It's that easy. If Jesus would behave this way, show me chapter and verse. And she made, I bet, 10 or 12 comments on my page, calling me a wolf in sheep's clothing, calling me basically a liar, and on and on and on, and then blocked me. And I was just over here having a good time. I was totally not upset by it at all, because I thought, you're showing your true colors. And it's upsetting to me because we are giving people a false picture of who our Lord is. But you can get all worked up if you want with me, because I'm just going to be over here laughing my way through it and just speaking truth. So that got me to wondering, though, how would Jesus treat these people? We are told over and over in Scripture to be like Jesus. Ephesians 5:1-2 says, therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. Philippians 2:1-4 tells us, so if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Which knocks out all those memes that are belittling people who think differently, live differently. But to be an imitator of God, to walk in the footsteps of Christ, we have to know who Jesus is. What example did he set while he walked on the earth? How did he treat people? We know that Jesus was merciful and kind to people. Jesus showed compassion. Jesus engaged people and asked questions and listened. Jesus was gracious. James 5:11 says, "Behold, we consider those blessed who remained steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful." How did Jesus treat those that society looked down on? Those that were seen as less than. So if we go to the Gospels, we obviously don't see all of Jesus's life, but we have some good examples of how Jesus treated those who were outcasts, those that people avoided or were afraid of. Luke 4:31-35 tells us, "And immediately there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, 'What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God.' But Jesus rebuked him, saying, 'Be silent and come out of him.' And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying out with a loud voice, came out of him." Jesus doesn't rebuke the man. Jesus rebukes the unclean spirit. But he doesn't say anything unkind or derogatory to the man. In Luke 5:12-14, it says, "And a leper came to him, imploring him, and kneeling, said to him, 'If you will, you can make me clean.'" Moved with pity or compassion, depending on which version you're reading, he stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I will be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. Now, I don't know a lot about leprosy other than it's pretty contagious and it's horrendous. It is a horrible disease to have. Lepers were unclean. And that goes clear back to the Old Testament. They had to yell out as they went, unclean, unclean. They lived separated from society. And they had to, so that if they were near unaffected people, they had to let them know that they were unclean. And that, if you look back to Leviticus 13, verse 45, that kind of tells that part of the law. But Jesus did not avoid the leper. He didn't ridicule him. He didn't talk down to him. Jesus took pity on him. I don't like the word pity because I think it the connotation with the word pity is not positive, I don't think. Like Oh, you poor thing. And that he was moved with compassion. And he touched him. He stretched out his hand and touched him. And we know Jesus could have healed him just by speaking. He did that more than once. But instead of just speaking healing over this unclean, diseased man, Jesus touched him and said, I will be clean. So then I have to ask, how then should we treat those that we see as unclean? Is Jesus making a statement about how to treat the downcast and diseased? He's certainly setting an example. In Mark 2, we read the account of Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners, sitting at a table, reclining, and the Pharisees just being like, why does your master eat with sinners and tax collectors? And Jesus says, those who are well have no need of a physician. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. And he goes on to tell them, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. We see Jesus with the woman at the well, a Samaritan woman. He was a Jewish man, and he asked her for a drink. He engaged her in conversation. This is the longest recorded conversation between Jesus and another person in the New Testament, is with the woman at the well. Someone who very likely could have been an outcast in society. But he took time. He engaged her. He wasn't scared of her, even though she was a woman. And there was no one else there, and he sat and talked with her and had a fairly long conversation. Compassion and kindness. Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners. Christians tend to avoid spending time and encourage separation from sinners. I think how often growing up I heard, you won't pull anybody up, they'll pull you down. Not sure that's biblical. Jesus talked with women without anyone else present. Christians, men tend to see women as temptation. Jesus felt compassion for the afflicted. Christians tend to mock and ridicule the afflicted. Jesus touched the unclean. Jesus was merciful. Jesus had empathy. And we see that all throughout the New Testament. However, I think one of the times we see that with clarity is when Lazarus died. And Jesus delays going to Bethany. He shows up and everybody's in deep mourning. And Martha says, if you'd have been here. If only you'd been here. And Jesus went before Lazarus's tomb. This family that he loved, he spent time with them, he loved them. And he saw Martha's grief, he saw Mary's grief, he saw the grief of all the people that had known Lazarus. And Jesus stood before that tomb and wept. Jesus wept. And he knew he was going to raise him from the dead. He knew what great joy was going to come in just a few moments. But he had empathy for Mary and Martha. He felt their pain. And he grieved along with them. Christians tend to fall more on the no compassion, no mercy, no empathy side. Now, obviously, these are kind of blanket statements. And there are very compassionate, merciful, empathetic Christians. But those comments from the Reddit thread are not isolated. And there's a reason people feel that way about Christians, and it's not because they're following Jesus. Christians are seen as non-judgment, or I wish we were seen as non-judgmental. Christians are seen as judgmental, assumptive. Is that a word? Bigoted, hateful. And those things, that's not for no reason. Why? Why do we choose to engage our world in a way that is more likely to turn people away from our Lord than towards him? It's not that hard to not be judgmental. And I was extremely judgmental. I've admitted that before. But it's not that hard to change. It starts with just keeping your mouth shut. I'm going to use my mom as an example. I have tattoos. And my mother is in her 80s, and she's not somebody that thinks very well of tattoos, but especially cannot understand why a woman would want to put tattoos on her body. Every time she notices a new tattoo on me, she says, I don't know why any woman would want to mark up their body with tattoos. And I say, I know, but I think they're beautiful. And all of mine have meaning to me. And I think they're beautiful, and I like them. So that's every time. To go from that to not being judgmental. So she's already told me how she feels about tattoos. And I know that. And I know that's not going to change. All she would have to do when she sees a new one is either, one, not comment at all, or that's really beautiful. That's a really beautiful piece of work. Even if we don't approve of something like a tattoo, we can appreciate the beauty and the artistry within it. I grew up with a very critical eye. And it was just kind of, I hate to even admit that I was like this, but I was. Looking at somebody that was very heavy or disheveled looking or whatever. When I was growing up, it's just the way we were. It was wrong, but it was just the way we were. We were very critical. Would never have said something directly to somebody, but the thoughts were there. Now, when I see somebody, I don't look at them critically. Or if I catch myself being critical as I look at them, I look for something complimentary to balance that out. And I try to say something positive. So if I notice somebody in a store and my thoughts might go to that critical, because sometimes, especially if you've grown up a certain way, it's almost like muscle memory. It just comes. But boy, that blouse, that is a great color on you. I really like that. Or I love that dress. That is really cute. Something small. Have you ever had anybody that was upset with you for giving them a compliment And it's genuine. I don't lie. I don't say things I don't think are true. But I make the effort to say something positive rather than just thinking negative things, even if I'm keeping them to myself. And that's how we change how we do things. That's how we change how we think. We can't help what pops into our head. We can help if we give it space to live. Or if we just usher it right out the door and replace it with something better. I can talk with somebody that I disagree with. I disagree with the way they live their life or the things they believe. Or maybe I don't understand. I don't understand the things they've gone through. But I can still be a safe place. I can still be compassionate and kind. And listen. Even if I don't have anything to say, or if the only things I have to say might be negative, I can just keep my mouth shut and listen. And if somebody's living a lifestyle that I do not understand or every fiber of my being thinks is wrong, I have gotten to where I try to look at people and say, what's gotten them to that point? Even people doing heinous things. Several years ago now, there was a boy that went into one of the local schools and shot some kids. And our tendency when somebody does something like that is just to be like, what a horrible person, and I can't believe they did that. And maybe it's because he was a kid. I thought, how much hurt is he carrying around that he would do that to kids he knows? Because it wasn't a big, huge school where everybody's an anonymous face. Those kids knew each other. It all starts with how we choose to think about people. And that affects the way we think. It affects the things we say. It affects how we treat people. And Jesus would have us treat people kindly, with compassion, and with mercy. Nobody is less than. And sometimes all somebody needs is that one person to be kind or to believe in them. And it can turn everything around. Can we be those people? What if instead of non-Christians saying Christians are hypocrites and they just use their religion to justify bigotry and exclusion of others, what if people were able to go, Christians are some of the most genuine, authentic people I know. And even those they disagree with, they love and they're kind to. They are some of the most inclusive people I know. Not necessarily because they agree with everything, but because kindness and love are the rule. Christians should not be afraid. I don't dislike Christians. They're lost in fear, and that's too sad to hate. Christians should not be lost in fear. Am I afraid of things? Oh, my word, yes. Am I afraid that I'm not going to be able to provide for my kids? Yes. Am I afraid of how am I going to get some of these things done without a vehicle? Yes. But should I live in fear of the world? Should I live in fear of what's happening here, or what's happening there, or what's going on in that country, or what's coming down the pike, what maybe? No. Should I be fearful of people who live differently than me? No. Christians ought to be walking through this world with all kinds of confidence. Because we serve a sovereign God. And once again, I have gone over time. I did want to just remind you all, I am somewhat feral. I will drop the F-bomb from time to time. I don't think I did today. I try not to be gratuitous with it, but it happens. So I just wanted to remind you. I hope the content's good enough that you'll stick it out through the F-bombs with me if those offend you. I want to remind you to like, share, leave me a comment. I would love to know what y'all are thinking. Do you like what you're hearing? Do you not like what you're hearing? Would you like to hear something different? Let me know. And follow. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I am on X, but I haven't really done anything there. I kind of don't understand X very much. So I haven't really done anything on X other than set up an account. And of course, find me at your favorite podcast platform. This is episode 6, and I hope you come back for episode 7. I hope you like what you're hearing. And until next time, take care.